over at BangTheBook.com, where we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. I posted my updated college football power ratings yesterday. Today, I've posted my top 3 over and top 3 under season win total best bets. Also, a college football situational piece for the Week 1 matchups. We'll have a great Tour Championship preview from James Mazzola later on today. We've got a ton of NFL stuff from Danny Vorgs. I've got a couple of Week 3 preseason previews up as well. We've got WNBA, soccer, tennis. We'll have MMA later next week. There is no MMA event this weekend. We'll have NASCAR later in the week as well. So plenty of great stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com. One thing I want to mention here real quickly at the top of today's show is that when it comes to the playback of the show, if you go through our blogtalkradio.com account, you're just going to get the unedited version of the program. That also goes to iTunes. We also have a setup where I cut the show into segments which go on Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio. Those are edited a little bit for some additional volume and things of that sort. So the uncut show also goes to iTunes via Blog Talk Radio. The segments go to iTunes as well as Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those via our Spreaker account. Everything posted over at BangTheBook.com. I don't know what the times are like for everything to pop up on those different podcast outlets, but you can get the full show and the segments right away over at BangTheBook.com right after the show. So something for you to keep in mind there. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. 2 guests on the program here today as we start things off with Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. Brian, how's it going today, man?
I'm good, Adam. How you doing, buddy? Here we go again, huh?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I know that it's balls to the wall, nose to the grindstone for us here for the next several months with football, and then, of course, basketball and college basketball running so deep in the month of March and on into April. So I guess I'll ask you this, man. The lead up to all of these seasons, all these different things going on, how crazy busy has it been for you lately?
Oh, it's different. There's no doubt. I mean, you go through a couple of months where, it's baseball. But then, I guess you get into July and all of a sudden odds to win conferences and divisions and things of that nature. And then you start doing your college previews and you start talking about football again, where football is just a vapor trail. So it's fun to start talking football again. And, now preseason football. And we got the college football games on Saturday night. Here we go.
Well, and speaking of those previews, over on our Bang the Book YouTube page, Brian's been nice enough to be doing conference breakdowns for us. SEC coming either tonight or tomorrow over there. And he'll also have a preview for us of this Tour Championship event. And, Brian, this is much, much different here this year because we have such a dramatically different format for the Tour Championship in 2019. Fill our listeners in on what's so different about this year's, final playoff event.
Well, basically what they did, they made all the points throughout the course of the year, then trimmed the 4 playoff events down to 3, quadrupled the points in the first 2, and then now at East Lake, number 1, who's Justin Thomas, will start the event at 10 under par. And he gets a 2-shot head start on Patrick Cantley and all the way back to the 30th competitor. And those guys at the bottom will start at even par. So, you're rewarded for what you've done most of the season. But the reality of it is the playoff events are so big where Patrick Reed and even Cantley, they swooped themselves way up top because points were quadrupled in the 2 previous tour events. So it's interesting now, and I think these are kind of some of the things we always talk about, Adam, in terms of trying to get the best of the number, and we did this. In fact, I'm pretty positive. On our video last week at Bang the Book, I was not crestfallen, but disappointed. Patrick Cantley, he played great. He could have won that event. Justin Thomas was just ridiculous. But last week we said, hey, listen, Patrick Cantley is, I think he was 14-1 to win last week. But if you bet him this week, you should bet him next week as well, because if he's there, and lo and behold, it's what happened. Cantley, I bet Cantley last week at 18-1 to win the FedEx Cup, and basically by having the runner-up finish, Cantley, who's now 4-1 this week, I've got it 18-1 to win the FedEx Cup. So it's almost like shopping for numbers or hedging the future, but giving yourself a chance to get an overlaid price. And I know we did that on the video last week. So knock on wood coming in, I've got Cantley 2 shots off the pace. If he's able to win this week, instead of getting 4-1, I'm getting 18-1. Yeah,
you got Justin Thomas here, as you mentioned, starting at 10 under, Cantley 8 under, Brooks Koepka 7 under, Patrick Reed, at 6, Rory at 5, then a handful of players at -4, Kuchar, Schauffele, Simpson, Rahm, and Abraham Ancer, who's had a nice little run here of late. But as we look at the odds board, Justin Thomas plus 250 at 10 under with that built-in 2-shot lead over Cantley. Cantley plus 455, Koepka about 5-1, Rory about 7-1. Nobody else under 14-1 here. So the question obviously becomes this, Brian. I mean, how do you approach this thing in a vacuum this week? I know you've got Cantley at the great price. Is there anybody worth taking this week that can go and run down Justin Thomas at a decent price?
I played 2 guys, nothing outlandish. But again, 30 guys, there is no cut. And basically, I think what happened in the final round last week, it is conceivably what could happen here. I can really see this event having a bottleneck going to the weekend, because when you're Thomas and Cantley, arguably 10-shot lead or an 8-shot lead over guys at the back of the pack, you're coming out of the gate, and what is your mindset? I mean, are you flag hunting? So Thomas specifically, I mean, out of the gate, he's going to want to see what guys are doing. Are they making a move at him? Because here's what happened last week. He had the 6-shot lead going into Sunday. Cantley closed it to 2 and had all the momentum. And now all of a sudden, through 12, 13 holes, Justin Thomas was asked to, I got to flip a switch again. And he hit 1 shot that won the tournament. And the lead had gotten cut to 2. He had a bad drive, and from the rough, he stiffed one, made birdie, and Cantley lipped out a birdie and slid an eagle just by, or that would have got really interesting at the end. Thomas, very deserving winner. But the mindset of the guys at the top, we're trying to be a shrink here. But I would think out of the gate, Thomas and Cantley would be thinking, okay, it's kind of match play all over again. Let's shoot at the middle of greens and see how the course is set up. But the guys that are 10 shots back are going to be flag hunting. So, some guys will shoot themselves out of it. There'll be a guy or two who's aggressive that plays well and can get right back in it, and then it turns into a golf tournament heading into the weekend. The 2 guys I looked at, I thought at 26-1, I think Xander Schauffele is a guy who's won this event before. I think you can take a long, hard look at it. And, again, he's got 4 days, shave 2 off a day, and you're right there. The other guy that I think at a balloon number is Kevin Kisner. Jordan Spieth has been a basket case this year because he's just playing military golf. You don't know where it's going. Left, right. But the one thing about Spieth is, I mean, he hangs around because he's rolling in 40-footers. The 2 best putters, if you ask me, from long range, I can't remember seeing a guy this year other than Spieth that rolled in and scares the hole every time from 40, 50 feet, and that's Kisner. And he's a steely-eyed kind of guy. So I think Schauffele and Kisner are the 2 guys I'll play coming into this event. I've already got Cantley. And then the other way to play it, Bud, is to look long and hard at matchups. And I think matchups are going to be very intriguing in this event. Again, based on the mindset. Don't forget I didn't know the exact number. You sent it to me yesterday. In fact, I got to try to pull it up. But by just making the top 30, by and that's what I loved about the event is last week. Oh, he's 40. This guy's 42nd. He gets a birdie. Oh, he's moved to within 33rd, and it's a tournament within the tournament because if you make the Tour Championship, the guy who finishes last year's cashing $300,000 just for putting a peg in the ground.
Yeah, $395,000 is the prize purse for finishing 30th here. So, as you mentioned, just getting here is certainly more than enough. And, it's such an interesting handicap because you have no margin for error here in terms of taking a look at some of the longer shots. So you need dudes that can go out there and post back-to-back 63s. You need guys that can go out there. A guy like Jon Rahm, for example, Jon Rahm can go shoot a 62 or a 63, but what does he do the next day? Can he be consistent? Hideki Matsuyama, same thing. Last week, he had 2 phenomenal rounds, made every putt, just was awesome off the tee, awesome on approach. His other 2 rounds, he wasn't particularly good. So you need guys that can consistently go low here. And also, like you said, from a matchup standpoint, look, if you're at the back of the pack here, you are in the middle of the pack, really, you have to play very aggressively to try and make a push here on Thursday and Friday. Sometimes aggression is good. Sometimes aggression can be bad. So I agree with you that even though it's hard to find equity in a futures price here, matchups are definitely the way to go this weekend, and there could be a lot of good angles with those.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the demeanor of the guy. I'm like, middle-tier guys are going to – listen, it's like the World Series of Poker. I think if you finish 8th, right, is that right? If you finish 8th, you're a millionaire. 8th place gets $1 million in this tournament. It's nuts. So there are big balloons on the line here. So there'll be guys that are thrilled to be here and say, every shot I make, guys are being aggressive and falling by the wayside. And, some guy says, look, I'll go out and shoot 69 4 days in a row and I'll finish 9th. And it's like winning a tournament, and that 9th place finish means a lot to certain guys. Other guys could care less. They got more money than they'll ever know what to do with. All that matters to them is winning. So a lot of it is trying to get between the ears of these guys and what's the motivation.
Well, and that was something you and I talked about. I know we chatted a little bit on Sunday, and you were talking about maybe looking to play against Justin Thomas in a matchup because, he had the tournament won. As long as he didn't fall down, it's kind of like a horse that's got a big lead. As long as he doesn't fall down, he's got this thing won. He tried his damnedest to fall down, but there's a guy, he didn't have to play aggressively. So going against him in matchups against guys with incentive, that may be a situation we get on Sunday in this thing as well.
Well, listen, the odds makers aren't stupid. I mean, it was, if you're willing to lay, 30 cents and there's so many plus prices that are out there. But the reality of it was, what were the odds makers telling you? Justin Thomas had a 6-shot lead. He's playing lights out. And Patrick Cantley was minus $1.30 on the Sunday matchup because Thomas was going to be, as he should have been, shooting at the middle of greens. And Cantley was going to be more aggressive. And, Cantley easily won the matchup.
All right, so as we transition away here from the golf and talk a little bit of NFL, it is week 3 of the preseason. This is the week that matters the most in the preseason because a lot of the starters play at least a half, usually into the third quarter. The backups will play the remainder of the game, so you don't have to worry about, undrafted Joe, who's not going to have an NFL job in a week, closing out the game for you. So, it's a little bit of a different type of dynamic here this week. We kind of see that with some bigger numbers out there for week 3 as well. But, Brian, in terms of your handicapping mindset for this dress rehearsal week, what are your thoughts on what we've got going on?
Well, the preseason is always going to be buyer beware. That doesn't mean you can't have firm opinions and end up on the short side of things. Like one of my favorite plays of the preseason was the over in the first game, Arizona and the Chargers. It was because Tyrod Taylor was going to play the first half, and he'd go up and down the field because it was important for the Chargers to get him action. He took them right down the field. They went 85 yards in 3 minutes, first and goal at the 2, and the running back fumbled the football. All right, one play, and playing the over in the first half of that game, it was a loser because then the Cardinals come out and took 7 minutes off the clock, got it out to the 45 and punted. And it ended up being 7-7 at the half, and it was over 20.5. They'd have scored 28 points if that running back didn't fumble at the 2-yard line. So there's always those scenarios that it can bite you in the butt. There are a couple. You do look at the numbers, and there's some things that you look at. Week 1, Indianapolis. I just don't understand the numbers, to be honest with you. Week 1, Indy's playing at Buffalo. No luck. It's Brissett. The Bills had the number 2 defense in the league last year at Ed Oliver, and it's all about, the Josh Allen and Matt Barkley's a really good backup. And they bet Indy like the game was over. They couldn't move the football to save their life, and Buffalo won easily. And I didn't do anything about it. I'm confounded by that, but I don't, it looks good. Well, the next week they come back, they do the same thing. The Browns look great in their first game, and they make Indy a 3-point favorite against the Browns. I'm like, well, what am I missing here? It's like the wrong team is favored. And Cleveland won the game 21-18, and they're doing it again. Here's Indy. Indy's a 4-point favorite against the Bears. Now, again, it's all about motivation. But if I'm sitting there looking at a quarterback rotation of Trubisky, Chase Daniel, and Tyler Bray, I think the wrong team's favorite. I mean, I could be wrong, but what I've seen through 2 weeks, nothing's changed in that regard. Yet they keep betting Indy.
Well, and that's something that's interesting here about Week 3 as well. If you're 0-2, a lot of times people like to back those 0-2 teams because they think, well, they want to get some sort of positive feelings going, especially here in the dress rehearsal week. So maybe they'll show up and actually play a little bit here. And then also for the home teams, maybe there's a little bit more of a buzz because the crowd's going to be a little bit bigger. The crowd's going to be a little bit more invested with the starters playing. And there's some incentive, maybe a little bit of pressure in some instances from ownership, from the GM, from the business department to put your best foot forward here in this home game to sell tickets, sell merch, drum up interest, all that kind of thing. So there are some of those factors as well. But then there are also some coaches out there that just still don't give a shit whether it's Week 3 of the preseason or not. So I think there are a lot of potential landmines and a lot of options too.
Now look at the Rams. I mean, McVay spent half of a quarter on the headsets on the broadcast. He was talking on the broadcast, analyzing. He wasn't even coaching the game. I mean, he doesn't care. The Drew Brees, the Saints won the game, but the day before the game in San Diego, Drew Brees is hanging out at Del Mar betting horses. I mean, the general rule of thumb, and I go all the way back to my days. I was there every day during that stretch in Buffalo when the Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls. It was called Club Mars. The first game, and you could have bet your house on it. No one that mattered was going to be anywhere near the field. And the Bills would get mauled in the first preseason game when they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. The general rule of thumb is good teams and true contenders, all they're trying to do is get to the starting gate with their players. It's like trying to get a horse to the starting gate, bet a future in the Kentucky Derby. The hardest thing is to have one that's in the top 20 that's in the gate. The good teams don't care. It's about staying healthy.
Yeah, and you certainly can't blame them for that. And obviously there's been a lot more traction here for, going from 4 preseason games down to 2, maybe extending the regular season, maybe doing some more joint practices as opposed to preseason games so you can hit somebody other than your own teammates. Maybe we do see some changes here to the preseason as we go forward. But one last thing I want to ask you about here, Brian, and then we'll look at one game specifically. You mentioned that Indianapolis line move and one that maybe you don't understand, but as a general rule, what do you think about line moves here, specifically for Week 3 of the preseason?
Well, you pay attention to it, but again, like anything, some of those moves can be misguided, and I'll just go to those 2 Indy games. It's like that thing's moving a certain way, and I'm going, what am I missing? Or like anything, you have to handicap the line move too. Go, oh, well, I understand why that's the case. But I just like any aspect of preseason football, it's buyer beware, and the line move could be just completely misguided.
All right, so one game I want to take a look at here specifically, and maybe this comes from, a Buffalo point of view because you are a Buffalo guy here, but I do know that you've followed the Bills closely in their 2 preseason games. They take on Detroit Friday night on the road at Ford Field. Detroit was a 1-point favorite. Lions flip now Buffalo -1. Not like this is a substantial line move by any means. These are 2 teams that have looked dramatically different in the exhibition season.
Well, I will tell you that yesterday morning I was doing a different podcast. Not that this is not my favorite one, but and the numbers came up, and I just looked. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Detroit opened a 2.5-point favorite, and in the meat of this podcast, I'm going, the wrong team's favored here. Now, what happens remains to be seen. But the wrong team is favored. Detroit's been a dog's breakfast. Well, sure enough, this thing crosses all the way back. Detroit opened 2.5. Now Buffalo's 1.5. I bet you this thing goes up to 2.5 at least. Here's the thing. Buffalo, it's only preseason. So as a Bills fan, and I am objective because betting's a bottom line thing, Buffalo has looked phenomenal, albeit in the preseason, for a number of reasons. They had the number 2 defense last year. Everybody's back, and they added Ed Oliver. And their backups have been flying around and making plays. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, they got incredible depth. And in the offseason, they went and got an entire new offensive line, but they've been mangled by injury. But the big thing was, and this is what you do in the preseason, you're looking for defined quarterback battles, maybe for a team to play the totals, because the only way you can evaluate a quarterback is to throw the football. Well, Buffalo had every play Josh Allen made last year, he made running for his life and just doing it himself. Now, you're watching these games, there's a pocket. There's an actual pocket there. And they've got 8 decent wide receivers vying for 6 spots. And these guys are all making plays. They've all come, and a good wide receiver is going to get cut from this football team. But the biggest addition has been Cole Beasley. And if you watch their games, you think Edelman got traded to Buffalo. And Josh Allen looks like a completely different guy, where he's in the pocket, he's looking downfield and seeing if there's the stretch plays there. And if it's not right out of the gate, he quickly looks for the check down on Beasley, who's running against the linebacker and has 4 yards of separation. It's like and he moves 8 yards every time. He had 5 catches for 44 yards in their 2 series against the Panthers. The offense actually looks pretty doggone good. And then on top of it, Matt Barkley, who beat the Jets 41-10 coming off the street last year in a regular season game, has a full year of knowing the offense. Matt Barkley's been lights out in the 2 preseason games, and in the second half, you're gonna be looking at Matt Barkley, who's going to go up and down the field and maybe do some good things. The scary thing is, if it comes down to the fourth quarter and they put Tyree Jackson in, he could do something stupid and blow what's been 3 quarters of good work for you. But I mean, from what I've seen, the Bills are playing at a really good level right now, albeit preseason, and the Lions can't get out of their own way.
Well, and as you look at the Lions here, big question as to whether or not we even see Matthew Stafford this week. If we don't, the Bills are playing 2 NFL quarterbacks, and the Lions are essentially playing 0 because David Fales and Josh Johnson are the 2 guys that are behind Stafford. Stafford yet to play here so far in the preseason, as I mentioned, so I don't know if he'll go this week. I guess we'll find out. But, Matt Patricia hasn't really played anybody. Kenny Golladay hasn't played. Marvin Jones hasn't played. Danny Amendola's been hurt. Kerryon Johnson only had 3 carries last week. So you sort of wonder, does he flip the script just because this is a 3rd preseason game and put everybody out there? Or does he, as you mentioned earlier, just worry about getting to week 1 intact, as healthy as you possibly can? Because the last thing you want to do is trot Matt Stafford out there because you're supposed to in the dress rehearsal. He takes a sack, and the Bills have 5 of them so far in the preseason, and then he's down for week 1 and possibly more. So I think the line move is correct, and quite frankly, even at the -1 price, or even maybe all the way up to -2.5, I think Buffalo is still the side here.
And I'll throw one goofy one at you just as a point of conversation. And yeah, I'm yapping about the Bills, but I've watched every play they played in the preseason. I'm in dire need of getting a life. But I've always said this, and I'm telling you, I don't understand it, Adam. You hear coach speak, run, stop the run, and all the things coaches say. But they say 3 facets of the game: offense, defense, special teams. There is no number in the wagering line built in. None, ever, for special teams. And I think, is it an intangible thing? Maybe to a degree, but I think there should be. Because if you sit there through week 7 and some team is like just the absolute dregs on special teams, or a team is the best where they're constantly pinning teams inside the 20, or they're getting 15 yards on punt returns, and the special teams are winning the field position battle, that's a big deal. And there's no number for that. And Buffalo has been an absolute unmitigated disaster on special teams. You have to go all the way back to Terrence McGee when he led the league in kickoff returns. They've been a disaster. You know what they did this year? They went and they got this Andre Roberts guy from the Jets, who's a beast on kickoff and punt returns. Kickoffs, 90% of them, they kick it out of the end zone. But I'm telling you, special teams is actually going to be a positive factor for the Bills this season. And there's another weapon that in a preseason game where guys are running down there trying to make a tackle and just make the team, you get crazy and goofy breakdowns in lanes. The other thing is, you've got this Andre Roberts probably in the first half returning punts. He could bust one for a touchdown.
Yeah, lots of good thoughts there, especially the special teams play. That's something that I really don't think that we talk enough about in the NFL, and we certainly should, and maybe we'll do that some more here on the show as we go throughout the season. But, Brian, with just a couple of minutes left here, I want to ask you about college football. I know you're a big-time NFL guy, golf, horses. For college football, you've been doing those video previews over on our Bang the Book YouTube page. So you've been doing some research with that, in that type of way. What else have you been doing here to get ready for the college football season, which kicks off on Saturday?
Oh, I think that's one of the beauties for doing a daily radio show, doing your podcast and things of that nature. Tonight I'll be on VSiN with Kenny White. And tomorrow night with Bruce Marshall, 2 guys that are amazing in college football. You surround yourself, and the minute you think you know everything, you know nothing. You have to be a sponge and you take it all in. And at the end of the day, you got to make your own decision and pull your own trigger. But you just take it all in. And I think the other thing I would say to you, Adam, like Saturday night, I got nothing on the Florida-Miami game. But honestly, the Arizona-Hawaii game, I can see them scoring 100 points. Khalil Tate was hurt last year. He was able to play, but he wasn't this dual threat running all over the place. And the McDonald kid, the first month of college football last year, it was insane what he was doing. And then he got hurt, and he played hurt all year long. These 2 kids coming in healthy, I think that game flies over the total, and the total's 74. So the other thing I would say, though, is you do all this reading and you have all this information, but it's on paper. It's not like preseason NFL where you get to see snippets of things that you can apply. And I'm a big eyeball guy. It's like you watch a game, and in the first half, team moves the ball up and down the field 3 times and turn it over inside the red zone twice and settle for a field goal. If they clean it up in the second half and they're catching points because they're down, or what, it's like, you got to watch these games. So with in-play wagering, and I do believe that the first full weekend of college football, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be like a trader. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch a lot of these games, and as the game's going on, kind of form an opinion. Okay, I kind of see what's going on here. It's not, I've got information and it's a guessing game, that I'm going to do the majority of my play until I know what I'm seeing. in play or with second half wagering the first week, maybe even the second week of college football. That's, for me, I think that's how I'm going to approach it.
Brian Blessing, who, as he mentioned, going to be on VSiN tonight and tomorrow, been filling in a little bit over there, but then you also do your two daily shows, Sportsbook Radio and also Vegas Hockey Hotline. How can people check out those programs, Brian?
Sportsbookradio.com, Adam, and believe me, going through the summer months, there's been a lot to talk about in hockey. It's been wild. I've never seen anything like it. All the 50 years of following this game, I've never seen anything like it, where all these restricted free agents haven't signed yet, and everybody's bogged down. The salary cap wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and everybody's waiting for the shoe to drop. And it's not just about the restricted free agents. It's that once these guys sign, teams know where they stand salary cap-wise, then some ridiculous deals are going to have to be made. So this is going to be a wild month coming up in hockey. We talk about that a lot. Today on Sportsbook Radio, Tony Neville, Sportsbook Director, great guy, Treasure Island. He's going to be in studio for an hour. So, we have all the top sportsbook directors in Vegas on the show, and it's great to get that thought process from the other side of the counter. So noon to 2, weekdays Pacific time, kshp.com. You can listen to it live. All the shows are archived at sportsbookradio.com.
And as always, make sure you check out Brian on our Bang the Book YouTube channel and follow him on Twitter at Brian Blessing. Brian, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll talk to you again next week.
Well, I look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Yes, sir. There you go. There's Brian Blessing, again, host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline, kshp.com, sportsbookradio.com, at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Speaking of that,